The name tournament is synonymous with some really famous UK-made matching feeder rods from Daiwa over the years, spanning back 20 plus years. I'm here today to run you through the newest offering in the tournament rods from Daiwa, the Tournament S rods. These new Tournament S rods replace the old Tournament Pro rods, which were a superb range of rods in their own right. As with anything in life, time moves on, and developing these new ranges of rods has allowed us to get in new Daiwa exclusive technology to the rods, so they're technically a better rod in their own right. It's going to help you catch more fish more accurately. And what we've done with these rods, which is a little bit different to the other tournament rods in the past, is tailor them towards natural fishing situations. Not to say you couldn't use them on a commercial. They'd be suited towards sort of winter commercial fishing and fishing for the smaller carp and F1s and what have you in commercials, but these rods really excel in natural water fishing situations. One thing I'll notice straight away is these tournaments look different to the predecessors. There's some blue accent on these rods as opposed to red accents on the old Tournament Pro rods. They've come out looking really nice, really classy, and the reason for the colour change is to make it obvious to you guys that they're a different sort of tournament rod now in the Daiwa ranks compared to the old Tournament Pro. As I say, they're lent towards natural water fishing, so it's to make it obvious to yourself that they're a new breed of Daiwa rods coming through. All of these rods, whether it's the match or feeder version, have a whole host of brilliant Daiwa exclusive technology in the rods. Starting off with the carbon itself, it's HVF Nano Plus carbon, and what that means is we can produce a lovely lightweight, software needed rod that will cast very accurately and be a joy to use and a joy to play the fish with. Also, we've got our top-notch joint technology, V-Joint Alpha. And to put it very simply, this allows the rod to straighten up a lot quicker, no flat spots in the joint, and it allows you to cast very accurately. And with these being Daiwa rods, of course, we've included that arm lock handle that you guys have grown to love. Really good feature on a rod, stops it slipping off your forearm when you're playing a fish and when you're reeling in. Great little feature that we made sure we included in these new rods. For the reel seats themselves, we've gone for a mix of the Daiwa Tournament reel seat and the Fuji reel seat, so real quality components throughout. The Daiwa reel seat, the Tournament reel seat, suits better the shorter, slimmer rods, and the bigger reel seat, the Fuji reel seat, suits better the bigger rods that you're naturally going to use a bigger reel with. So each reel seat matched to each rod to get the best performance possible. To give you an overview of the entire range of these Tournament S rods, match and feeder, starting off with the feeder rods. There's 5 rods in the range, and they all include the Sea Guide TDG guides. You're probably familiar with these guides by now. They're a skeletal type guide, super lightweight, a lovely addition to these rods. Starting with the shortest of the feeder rods, we've got a 10-foot 2-piece version. This is a lovely rod fishing on commercials for silverfish in the winter or in the summer, and obviously for natural water feeder fishing at short range for all manner of species that you're going to find in these venues. I personally use this rod up to probably 30 metres. There's no point struggling. If you need to go any further than that, it's using an 11-foot rod, so up to 30 metres, all the way down to sort of 10 metres. It's a lovely rod for whizzing in and out really quick, catching these silverfish that you're going to be looking to be targeting. This rod comes with a 0.75 and a 1 ounce and then a 1.5 ounce BG Megatop quiver tips. These quiver tips marry into the blank just nice. They're a very slim quiver tip in themselves, so they marry into the slim blank just right. They're a perfect addition to this rod. So that's your super short range cover, sort of up to 30 metres with a 10-foot. Anything from sort of 35 metres up to 65 metres, you're looking at the 11 and 12-foot rod. The 11-foot rod is a 2-piece rod again, then moving on to the 12-foot, that's a 3-piece rod for a couple of reasons. The pack down length, it makes it a lot more compact than a 12-foot 2-piece rod. It can get a bit awkward, a 12-foot 2-piece rod, you know, like 190 centimetres you're talking there, so it becomes quite niche what holdalls you can put it in, more sort of commercial fishery suited that. 12-foot 3-piece rod though, lovely natural water fishing rod, and it produces the action that you want for this sort of silverfish based rod. So what would you use these rods for? 11-foot rod, I'd use that sort of up to 40 metres on venues like Southfield on a shorter line, Larford and Gold Valley in the winter for silverfish, little open-end feeder tactics. Then moving on to a 12-foot rod, it's your perfect rod for sort of long line fishing at Southfield, sort of 50 metre rod. It's a beautiful rod to use, lovely action. Whether you're fishing for small skimmers or roach or big bream, it's a lovely rod to use in those situations. And both of these rods come with the same quiver tips that come on the 10-foot rod, just because they match the rod action perfectly, and you're sort of fishing for the same fish, just at different distances, so you want to use the same quiver tips. And so just to recap, that's the 0.75, 1 ounce, and then 1.5 ounce BG mega top quiver tips. The last two feeder rods in the Tournament S range is a 12.5 foot and a 13.5 foot. Obviously these are longer rods. They're a great river feeder rod. Extra length allows you to keep that line up out the water, out the toe, to still get that bite detection from a reasonably fine tip without having to use a silly heavy tip with all that line drag in the water. And obviously if you're on a big reservoir or lake, that extra length is going to spell extra distance to you. So with these being more river based rods and distance rods, the quiver tips have changed in these rods to suit the blanks. They're a more faster taper blank to allow you to achieve that distance but still retain that play in action. So we've put our CT quiver tips, still a carbon quiver tip, with these rods. The 12.5 foot rod comes with a 1.5, 2 and a 3 ounce, and the 13.5 foot rod comes with a 2, 3 and a 4 ounce. So there's something there to cover you for all the situations you're going to be using these rods in, whether it's for a barbel on a river, a chub on a river. They've got the power to do that, no problem. But they've still got that softness in the tip to allow you to use these rods for a long chuck at somewhere like Bow Beach or Southfield, 60 metres plus, but still retain that nice fish play in action and bite detection that you're going to want for those small skimmers as well. So lovely all-round rods, either when you want a bit more distance or you're fishing on a river. One last thing to note for these feeder rods, when you see them in the shop, you'll notice there's different handle lengths on all the shorter 3 rods, and then the 2 longer rods have got also a longer handle than the other 3 shorter rods. So the reason for that is we wanted to really tailor the handle length to the rod fishing situation. So obviously if you're fishing a really short 10-foot rod, the likelihood is you're going to be fishing for small fish, small roach, something like that, and you're going to be in and out all the time, fast fishing. So you don't want a long handle, it's going to catch your side, it's going to get in the way when you're baiting up your feeder. So a short rod with a short handle is a real nice benefit for these sorts of rods. Likewise, with a longer rod, you don't want a short handle because you haven't got any power to compress the blank and pull into your body when you're fishing out at distance. Float rod wise, there's 5 versions in the Tournament S range. They all feature a mix of TYG guide and TDG guides from Sea Guide. These are both super lightweight skeletal type guides that really allow you to have a lovely lightweight rod and allow the action to perform perfectly. The TYG guides are a little bit different to the TDG guides, as in they stand a long way off the blank and they're slightly triangular look about them in the ring. So what this does is it keeps your light main line off the blank on wet and horrible days. Real benefit to float fishing in any horrible situations, I'm sure you agree. So a real worthy addition to these float rods. So now to talk you through the lengths available in the Tournament S range of float rods, and start off with a brand new one for Daiwa. We've got a 2-piece and 11.5 foot rod. The need for this rod come about is we realise there's a lot of silverfish matches on commercial venues these days, so this length's going to suit that perfectly. Waggler fishing for small skimmers, bream and roach at sort of 15 to 25 metres. Lovely little rod for that. Also a nice rod for small rivers and drains as well, of course. So moving on, we've got a 13 and a 14 foot rod, both 3-piece rods due to the nature of the length of the rod, and they're perfectly suited towards waggler fishing on commercial fisheries at longer length for silverfish and bream and what have you. Obviously river fishing a bit closer in, a 13 and a 14 foot rod, and slider fishing. So they're great additions to the range, very traditional lengths, but for good reasons. They suit a whole host of different situations, and I'm sure you'll find them a joy to use for silverfish, whether it be on a lake or a river. And lastly, we've got the 2 longer rods in the range, a 15 foot and a 17 foot. 15 foot being 3-piece due to the length of the rod, and 17 foot being 4-piece, just to make it a bit more compact when you're packing it down and away. Obviously these longer rods are pretty much standalone river rods due to the length of them, allows you to control your line behind your float, really nice. 15 foot, very nicely suited to fishing a stick float closer in. 17 foot, you're more looking towards bollo fishing, larger stick down the middle. 15 foot also a lovely waggler rod. You're looking to fish that a little bit further out, but you still want that control over the back of your float. Similar to the feeder rods, you'll notice these handle lengths are a bit different to your traditional waggler and float rods. We made them a bit shorter to make them easier to use. With a float rod, as we all know, you've basically got hold of it all day, so you don't want too long a handle. You don't need to compress the rod too much when you cast. You'd rather a shorter handle, get in the way less, and make you that little bit more efficient throughout the day. So that's all the facts and figures of Daiwa's latest UK made Tournament S rods. If you're an avid silverfish angler, whether it be on a commercial or on a natural water, check them out. I'm sure you'll find something in the range that will suit you down to the ground.